in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of Saint Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen. Amen.
Announcements. Good morning, Senators. I beg to announce that since the last sitting of Parliament, His Excellency has been pleased to assent to the following bills: Appropriation 2018 to 2019, National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment. I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly advising that the following motions and bills were passed in the House of Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to authorize the making of an order for the 2014 supplement to the revised edition of the laws. Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or recurrent expenditure for the Saint Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Resolution that this Parliament do adopt the attached logo to be designated as the official logo of the Parliament of Saint Lucia. Saint Lucia Tourism Authority Amendment Act. Senators, please join me in extending sincere condolences to the family of the former Senator Cyril Alva Landers, who passed away on Saturday, 5th May 2018. He served in the Senate from 19th October 1979 to December 1980. I also wish to note with sadness the passing of Ferdinand Henry on Thursday, 10th May 2018 at the age of 76. Mr. Henry was a former parliamentarian representing the constituency of Dennery North. He served as Minister of State and Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, Fisheries and Cooperatives. He also served as Minister of Health. We extend condolences to his family and friends. Another great Saint Lucian icon has passed. Mr. Garth Saint-Omer, famous writer and publisher of Saint Lucian history and poetry, passed away on Tuesday, 24th April 2018. We wish to extend sincere condolences to the Saint-Omer family. I also wish to express my deepest condolences to Archbishop Rivas, the clergy and parishioners of the Roman Catholic Church on the passing of Father Thomas Sarayajal, affectionately known as Father Tom, on Thursday, 26 April 2018. May his soul rest in peace. Let us stand for a moment of silence. On a much brighter note, I wish to congratulate Ms. Laverne Spencer on the achievement of a gold medal in the women's high jump at the Commonwealth Games 2018, held in Australia earlier this year, where she cleared the bar at a season best of 1.95 meters. We wish her all the best as she continues her athletic journey. I also wish to congratulate St. Lucian Chef Nina Compton on attaining the title Best Chef South at the 2018 James Baird Foundation Restaurant and Chef Awards. We wish her continued success. Senators, I would also like to recognize all the nominees and awardees of the National Youth Awards 2018. In particular, Ms. Chelsea Foster, who captured the Youth of the Year title. We continue to applaud our young people for their contribution to the national development. I wish to report that Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, Deputy President, and I attended Parliamericus Conference on Gender-Responsive Climate Action, hosted by the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Several topics were discussed with emphasis on the need for legislators to apply gender-specific budgeting to climate action. A declaration of the 10th gathering of the Parliamentary Network for Gender Equality, Gender-Responsive Climate Action was signed by all participants on behalf of their respective parliaments. A report of the conference and the literature are available in the library at Parliament. I wish to further report that I took the opportunity to pay a courtesy call upon the President and Vice President of the Senate of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, who kindly facilitated a tour of the Parliament office, in particular the library, security department, digitizing department, and outreach, the last two of which are of particular interest to our Parliament. I also attended a sitting of the Senate where I was warmly welcomed. Finally, in our effort to strengthen our democracy, the offices of the Parliament and the Parliamentary Commissioner will continue its ongoing sensitization of parliamentarians. At this time, I would like to alert you to a presentation to be delivered by the Parliamentary Commissioner on the role of the office of the Parliamentary Commissioner. The date for this presentation will be circulated. Statements from ministers. Appointment of sessional committees. Sorry. Minister for Culture and Local Government.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Of course, I want to share in your sentiments with respect to the number of great persons that have gone to the great beyond, particularly from the sporting and cultural fraternity. And today we add two more to that list in the persons of Una Francis, who was the Sportswoman of the Year for Saint Lucia in 1980, and Hugh Bristol, who served as an athletic coach up to the time of his death, recently, last 2 weeks. And so we express that. And I also want to indicate that the great icon, Garth Sentumer, was my cousin. His mom was my grandaunt. And so at this time that we're moving into the carnival season, I think you would be literally smiling, you understand, in terms of trying to put, pen to paper or even canvas in expressing what he feels or how he feels about the carnival season. And so it's with this in mind, I stand up here to indicate that as a government, this is the second year we are doing the carnival underneath the Soleil banner. And we are happy to say that we are pleased with the progress that we've made in that regard, in terms of delivering a carnival to the people that is for the people and by the people. This is our second year operating, and we expect a bumper year with the celebrations. This year we began much earlier in terms of our planning, and what we've been able to achieve this year is to get 10 major communities across the country involved in the celebrations, which is what we always want, to ensure that the programs are decentralized across the country and people are part of it. So the celebrations will span 2.5 months, and of course it will be activities all across the country, from Grosile, around the island, Grosile, Babano, Mabuya Valley, Dennery, Miku, Vieux-Fort, Soufrière, Canaries, and Slurry, as well as Roseau. So we're really looking forward to a great celebration, and from all indications, I think we're on track in terms of the deliverables. The deliberate expansion of the program, of course, will create more opportunities for economic activity for our smaller vendors in the communities, and also will begin to achieve the results, the goals that we want in terms of making that contribution towards the GDP of St. Lucia. We see that happening too, even with respect to our tourism arrivals. This year we have many more persons coming into St. Lucia specifically for the carnival, so the hotels are all excited about the numbers that they're seeing. Most of the events, of course, for the national events will be held in the Carnival City, which is located at the VG, the SAB playing facility. There will be events at the National Cultural Center. Only one event from the national team, the national package, is going across to Grosile, the Royalton, which is really supposed the night for the young women who will be competing in the Miss St. Lucia pageant. All of the aspects of Carnival will be highlighted. You know, we have some phenomenal artists in here as well, so there will be an opportunity for all of these artists to display their skills within the season that we have. So we really want to say thanks to the many sponsors who have contributed to the event, the media as well, and of course all our strategic other partners like Events St. Lucia, the Cultural Development Foundation under its new leadership of Danny Belizier, and of course Thomas at the Events St. Lucia, the PS of the Youth and Sports, and also the PS within the ministry, the whole cluster of ministries, Donovan Williams, for the tremendous effort they made to ensure that we begin to realize the product and dream that we have for our carnival in St. Lucia. We want to thank, of course, the Prime Minister for his vision too, and for the tremendous amount of support he has given personally to ensure that we deliver it in the way that we should. So with those few words, I just want to indicate that this is the carnival programming. We have copies of the full schedule, so our team here can all savor it. But we want to encourage the public to participate, but do so respectfully, responsibly, and of course, keep asking them to keep themselves safe. Thank you so much.
Appointment of sessional committees. Senators, you may recall that committees are already appointed, but we need to reappoint every session. And so may I suggest that we keep the membership that you already have recorded? Have the papers been handed out? Sergeant? Did you give them the papers? Okay. Honorable Leader of Government Business, can we keep the same membership?
Madam President, I have no issues in keeping the same membership.
Senator Henry, can we keep the same membership?
Madam President, I concur.
And you should have in your possession the chart of all sessional committees. If not, they can be handed to you. Papers to be laid. Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 27A of 2018, Tourism Incentives, Rainforest Sky Rides Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 27B of 2018, Price Control Amendment Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 27C of 2018, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 28 of 2018, Legal Profession Eligibility, Peter Andrew Hayden Marshall Order. Statutory Instrument Number 29 of 2018, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Registration Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 30 of 2018, Fiscal Incentives, Saint Lucia Linen Services Limited Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 31 of 2018, Immigration, Prohibited Immigration Order. Statutory Instrument Number 32 of 2018, Finance Administration Act Resolution of Parliament to borrow capital expenditure, Natural Disaster Management's Immediate Response Tropical Storm Matthew. Statutory Instrument Number 33 of 2018, Tourism Incentives Bucket List Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 34 of 2018, Tourism Incentives Kismet Clover Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 35 of 2018, Income Tax Exemption SMJ Saint Lucia Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 36 of 2018, Tourism Incentives Sandals Resorts International Group Order. Statutory Instrument Number 37 of 2018, District Court Place of Sittings Castries Notice. Statutory Instrument Number 38 of 2018, District Court Place of Sittings Viewfort Notice. Statutory Instrument Number 39 of 2018, Price Control Amendment Number 6 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 40 of 2018, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 6 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 41 of 2018, Legal Profession Eligibility Hamilton Carl Daly Order. Statutory Instrument Number 42 of 2018, Fiscal Incentives Viking Traders Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 43 of 2018, Income Tax Exemption KM2 Solutions Saint Lucia Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 44 of 2018, National Savings and Development Bonds Act Resolution of Parliament to raise funds by the issue of savings bonds. Statutory Instrument Number 45 of 2018, External Trade Restricted Imports Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 46 of 2018, Price Control Amendment Number 7 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 47 of 2018, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Number 7 Order. And finally, Madam President, Saint Lucia Bureau of Standards Annual Report 2016-2017.
Motions. Motion number 1. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to lay the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that this Honorable Parliament do adopt the attached logo. Oh, sorry, Madam President, clearly I'm reading the wrong instrument here. Let me, my apologies, it's right here, sorry.
That is correct.
That's the one?
That's the correct one.
Okay, yes, I think I was going the right direction here. Sorry about that. So be it resolved that this Honorable Parliament do adopt the attached logo to be designated as the official logo of the Parliament of Saint Lucia. Be it further resolved that henceforth all matters pertinent to the Parliament do bear that logo, and that the Clerk of Parliament shall be responsible for the management of such logo. Be it resolved that Parliament do authorize the Attorney General to make an order to declare that the 2014, my apologies, it's just the way it is outlined here. So, Madam President, may I read this over again? I don't want to mix the two motions. So motion 1, Madam President, this is the one I'm dealing with. So be it resolved that this Honorable Parliament do adopt the attached logo to be designated as the official logo of the Parliament of Saint Lucia. Be it further resolved that henceforth all matters pertinent to the Parliament do bear that logo, and that the Clerk of Parliament shall be responsible for the management of such logo. Thank you.
Opposition Leader of Business.
Madam President, I beg to support the motion as read.
Honorable Senators, the question is that this Honorable Parliament do adopt the attached logo to be designated as the official logo of the Parliament of Saint Lucia. And be it further resolved that henceforth all matters pertinent to the Parliament do bear that logo, and that the Clerk of Parliament shall be responsible for the management of such logo. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that Parliament do authorize the Attorney General to make an order to declare that the 2014 supplement to the revised edition of the Laws of Saint Lucia, as specified in the order, shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by such order as an authoritative version of the law.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament do authorize the Attorney General to make an order to declare that the 2014 supplement to the revised edition of the Laws of Saint Lucia, as specified in the order, shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by such order as an authoritative version of the law. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow $16,192,000 US from the Caribbean Development Bank for the purpose of financing the Saint Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Be it further resolved that A, in the case of the Special Funds Resources portion, 1, the loan is repayable in 80 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, the first day of April, the first day of July, and the first day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the bank may specify in writing. And 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.5% per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the Special Funds Resources portion. And B, in the case of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion, 1, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, the first day of April, the first day of July, and the first day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the Caribbean Development Bank may specify in writing. 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.97% per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the ordinary capital resources portion. And 3, a commitment charge at the rate of 1% per annum is payable quarterly on the amount of the ordinary capital resources portion, unwithdrawn, and with the accrues, and which accrues from the 60th day following the date of the loan agreement. Madam President, by way of a brief explanation as to the reason government is borrowing this amount of money, the Saint Lucia Education Equality Improvement Project, it is well known as EQUIP, is financed by a loan and grant facilitated by the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB. And CDB approved a loan to the government of Saint Lucia on January 29, 2018, in the amount of $16,192,000 United States dollars for the above project. The loan consists of $8,192,000 United States dollars from the CDB's ordinary capital resources, and $8 million United States dollars from the CDB's special funds resources. A grant in the amount of $740,000 United States dollars is also provided under this project. The grant consists of $615,000 United States dollars from the CDB's Special Development Fund and $125,000 United States dollars from the CDB's other special funds, which is the European Investment Bank. The expected outcome of the project is improved quality, equity, efficiency, and effectiveness of the education system, making it responsive to the needs of diverse learners. This objective will be achieved through 1, expansion, rehabilitation, and furnishing of selected schools, aging plants. 2, improving the quality, relevance, and the effectiveness of instruction across the sector. And 3, strengthening the leadership, governance, and management capacity of the sector. Madam President, the project implementation will comprise of A, project preparation, B, consultancies, C, construction rehabilitation works for 4 schools, and D, project management, supply of furniture and equipment, and teacher training and professional development. In terms of project preparation, Madam President, it is to include preliminary designs, environment and climate vulnerability assessment for 4 schools, which includes Gordon and Walcott combined, Laguerre combined, Vide-Bouteille combined, and Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. And in terms of the consultancies, Madam President, 1, it will develop a national policy for special education. 2, customization of special education curricula. 3, strengthen system leadership. 4, develop a national qualification framework. 5, review of the Education Act. And 6, develop a policy and strategy for treatment and prevention of drug use among primary school children. And in terms of the construction rehabilitation, Madam President, as I said earlier, it includes these 4 schools, I'm going to repeat them. Gordon and Walcott combined, Laguerre combined, Villebouteille combined, and Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Madam President, this project is expected to be implemented over a period of 48 months. The borough, which is the government of St. Lucia, shall repay the amount withdrawn from the SFR loan account in 80 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments. The borough, Madam President, shall repay the amount withdrawn from the OCR loan account in 48 equal and consecutive installments. These payments are due January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and October 1st each year after 5 years grace period following the date of this agreement, or on such later due dates as the CDB may specify in writing. Madam President, the borough shall pay an interest at a rate of 2.5% per annum on the amount of the SFR portion and 2.97% per annum on the OCR portion withdrawn and outstanding from time to time. The interest shall be payable quarterly. And finally, Madam President, the borough shall expected to pay to the bank a commitment charge of at 1% per annum on any amount of the OCR portion unwithdrawn from time to time. The charges will accrue from the 60th day after the date of the loan agreement. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow US $16,192,000 from the Caribbean Development Bank for the purpose of financing the St. Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Be it further resolved that in the case of the Special Funds Resources portion, the loan is repayable in 80 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, the first day of April, the first day of July, and the first day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the bank may specify in writing. And 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.5 per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the Special Funds Resources portion. B, in the case of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion, 1, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, the first day of April, and the first day of July, and the first day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the Caribbean Development Bank may specify in writing. 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.97% per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion. And 3, A commitment charge at the rate of 1% per annum is payable quarterly on the amount of the ordinary capital resources portion, unwithdrawn, and which accrues from the 16th day following the date of the loan agreement. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. Senator Henry. My apologies, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I do understand that we are not perfect, and of course we will eventually get it correct as we go through some of these protocol issues as it relates to our processes here. Madam President, I want to thank you and to acknowledge the time that your preliminary contributions in terms of you being away, representing this Parliament in Trinidad, as well as acknowledgement to persons who have left us, and highlighting some of the greats among us. It is indeed refreshing to know that persons like Chelsea, Nina Compton, Levin Spencer, and the likes of Darren Summy, even he was not mentioned, is still around. And whereas we have the greats leaving us, we are happy to know that we still have rising among us more great ones. And like my father always reminded me, you know, a pied banane capote yon wejin fig, me only one can wish ton ki capote pli fig. So even one goes, then there are others to come, and we are happy this morning for Levin Spencer, Chelsea Foster, Nina Compton, Darren Summy, and the others who you have mentioned. Madam President, we are here today to continue, as it were, the discussion on the business of St. Lucia. And of course, which can best be described as a country in a state of uncertainty. Uncertainty about where we are going and our priorities. And of course, I will explain why. For some might ask, why am I saying that we are uncertain? The answer to the questions where we are going and our priorities are the very compass to our existence. These cornerstone answers are the ones that unite. These cornerstone answers in terms of where we are going and what our priorities can bring about the best St. Lucian relationships in this Parliament, in our institutions, in our schools, our homes, and even on the playgrounds. But the absence to the questions about our desired destination and our priorities is the reason why we continue to have, as it seems, unproductive debates and discussion here. And of course, if I choose to say, much warmongering among parliamentarians at times. The absence of a collective agreed destination may be the single most important foundation any government can lay. And the absence of such cornerstone answers may be the very reason why this government seems unclear, vague, and is at sea when it comes to the business of St. Lucia. And I will explain to you further. When we are vague and unclear about where we are going, coupled with a worldview that we do not have to account in this life, or even in the life to come for the things that we do, the people will go deeper, and St. Lucia will find itself together in social and economical degradation. Madam President, I'm speaking to the motion, and this is just to proceed what I'm going to say. Madam President, the government continues to be in a state of flux. On one hand, we continue to be in a state of crisis in most vital sectors: agriculture, health, tourism, the construction sector, I am aware, the manufacturing sector, business and transportation, climate resilience and disaster preparedness, while we are attempting to administer some sort of resuscitation to one vital sector of the economy, the education sector. So I see the government, as it were, a medical doctor attempting to remove a tumor from a patient's brain, but while stabbing it in the heart at the same time. Let me explain. We would not realize the desired gains in education to propel us into the future that belongs to our children if we do not take their health as a serious matter. I repeat, we will not achieve the desired gains in education of our children in the future if we do not appreciate and understand that their health is a serious matter. If they are not healthy, we will not be able to maximize their intellectual potential. And Madam President, there needs to be more than a nexus between education and health. Education, like health, inequalities are driven in large part by the social context in which we live. Where we are born, where we work, our situation, and of course the government to a large extent is responsible for the condition under which people live. Madam President, health and education, they exist in a way that a lot of us who probably can separate our resources to achieve some of the things we achieve do not understand. Madam President, there are persons in St. Lucia who would give up the rest of their life and go to the grave to protect the rest of the resources for their children's education. There are families who've had to make that hard, cold decision that I am no longer going to invest on chemotherapy because my daughter needs to finish her education. And Madam President, these are not poor people. In our last 10 years ago country poverty survey, 24% of our population, which is above the poverty line, is vulnerable to poverty. Some of them are called working poor people. And once they lose their job, they are subject to poverty. And they come to the realization they have to make some hard, cold decisions about life and death and education of the children. Why am I saying this? You see, government is expected to significantly contribute to the condition under which people live. So while some people can invest millions into lengthening their lives, some people, in order to bequeath a little money to their children, would accept death. So when we are governing, Madam President, in a hit or miss approach, sometimes windfall might fall in our direction. But it also exposes, Madam President, the ad hoc manner in which we are governing, the ad hoc manner in which this government is taking the business of St. Lucia forward. Had this been planned or deliberate agenda of this government, we would have heard pronouncements. And of course, Had this been a planned agenda by the government would not have approached the health situation in the manner in which it did. Madam President, to make this point even clearer, and of course, since you all have asked me and begged me to be brief, I will attempt to be brief, but it would help if you allow me to make my contribution without much disturbance. The purpose of education, as intimated by John Dewey, a philosopher, and also as espoused by a known writer, the leader of opposition and member here should know, Ellen G. White, is to prepare people to live in the society, and not just to live, but to make a contribution to the well-being of mankind. It is the harmonious development of all the faculties, the intellectual, the physical, the social, the spiritual well-being of a person. This is what true education is about. And of course, Madam President, true education will create a person, and in that person, you would be able to reflect the likes of a Derek Walcott, a Sir Arthur Lewis, a Levin Spencer, a Darren Sammy, a Nina Compton, a Chelsea Foster. True education will create one person with all of these attributes. This is what lies directly at the path of government when it comes to development. And that's why there is more than a nexus between education and health. And I dare say, Madam President, true education do not only prepare you to make a contribution in this life, but I dare say for those who believe in the afterlife as well. For like a mother would prove to you, from conception, a mother starts the process of caring, training, educating, and protecting the life of a child. From the cradle to the grave, the process of education and caring is experienced. How can a government speak of education but ignores the situation of a health problem, a health crisis of the very citizens of this country? And I ask, not to cast blame on anybody, but I'm thinking, had there been a solid, focused agenda of the government, a plan that is engraved in the hearts of all Saint Lucians, that we all understand where we are going, you would not treat health in the manner. And I'll continue, and I'll take my time like the Americans when you disturb, because I do not plan to stay here long, but I would like to make my contribution. So, Madam President, true education, or education is not possible without a deliberate and purposeful health agenda. They are two important functions that take place simultaneously. And I mean, Madam President, I'm sure there are many mothers in this room who would understand and appreciate there is the function of protection of life, and there is growth and development. And it starts from conception. Protection of life in the mother's womb. What you eat, what you drink, and how you continue to help develop that child in the womb. And the nurturing starts to take place. And from this process, all to your grave. You know, even while I was over in Dominica, I reflect on the parliament. I reflect on this parliament. I reflect on every one of us who sits here to come and make our contribution. There are times we laugh, we smile at certain contributions, just to create an atmosphere that maybe I'm not serious. But words that are correct and right do not go unheard. You may wish to disagree with me or say it in another way or find something wrong with me. But when you laugh at serious contributions like that, it tells me how serious you are about the business of the people of Saint Lucia. Go ahead, laugh. Madam President, a good mother with children are not perfect individuals. Some of them may lack knowledge, but that is why they attend clinics. That is why they are trained in pre- and postnatal caring of children. A good mother who is not perfect attends parents, teachers, PTA meetings, because the children, the caring of the children is always in focus, education. A good government would likewise consult and listen and seek advice and subject themselves or himself to the views of others. Not laugh when a contribution is being made in this honorable parliament. No. But I take it the fountain of wisdom appeared to lie on this side of the house. So you go ahead and attempt that you are solving all of the problems in Saint Lucia. For you, so we cannot, Madam President, govern using a hit or miss approach. So we are here today, like some good mother would tell you, that some mothers do things just because somebody else is doing it, not that because they are caring. Some could not be bothered. But of course, everybody take the children to school. You send your child to school as well. Everybody's going to clinic. You go to clinic as well. So everybody's borrowing monies from the Caribbean Development Bank for something. So you borrow monies as well. Education is the menu that they have. You take it for education. But what's the motive? Is it for the appropriation of contracts? What is it about? I'm asking the question. There's nothing wrong in asking the question. You have to account. You have to account. So what, don't be afraid of the question. I'm making a contribution to this honorable house. What is the motivation? Is it because we care about the well-being of St. Lucians and we advance in the education agenda? And if so, why? Health was not taken seriously. Why did we? Why? But I'll tell you, Madam President, and I'll ask that we do not play games with the lives of St. Lucians. We must not treat the business of St. Lucians. Some people in St. Lucia can afford, when they are sick, to get on a plane, use their visa or their means of connection and find themselves in the best hospitals. I cannot afford. I have had to deal with it because a lot of middle-class people, a large percentage of us, if you want to know how wealthy some people are in St. Lucia, is when the stroke hits. Not even Pampers they can buy for 1 month straight. If you want to know how well the middle class doing, is when the heart starts to rock and the cardiologists tell you that your cholesterol is way up, your pressure, and you have all of the conditions for heart failure. It is that time.
Madam President, I would like to invoke Standing Order 37-1, please, Madam President. And it says that, subject to the provisions of these standing orders, debates upon any motion, bill, or amendment shall be relevant to such motion, bill, or amendment, and a senator shall confine his observations to the subject under discussion. Madam President, I know there are times that you can give some leeway to our senators, but this debate, the motion speaks of education, but for some reason, Madam President, it has become a debate on this side of health.
Senator Henry, I think you've made the point. You made the connection. And could you please now continue your discussion and confine it to the subject under discussion?
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Madam President, I have difficulties in trying to understand why a parent would not appreciate the fact that there is a deep and serious connection between the issue of education and health. I have a difficulty with this. As a matter of fact, Madam President, I can speak education. And it's all about the well-being of children. How do you profile a child in the school, Madam President, who is showing behavioral problems? How do you appropriate the right environment for a child with certain disorders? And how do you characterize these disorders? Is that why we have so many young men, Madam President, who ought to be at school but at Bordelais and at the Boys Training Center? Do we have the medical capacity to see their true medical problems? My goodness, Madam President, I am totally surprised. I am surprised that parents of St. Lucia, parents in 2018, who are seated in this house to represent St. Lucia, do not understand and appreciate the close nexus between health and education. A healthy child can exploit their true educational and intellectual potentials. A child who is suffering is unable.
Senator Henry, please proceed with the discussion at hand.
So, Madam President, I will, since I'm being hindered to make my point, I will bring my presentation to a close. And it's unfortunate that that this is the approach that this House would like to take. But I've heard debates in here, and I will leave the rest for you to judge. And I will never call on your attention to stifle anybody's contribution, Madam President. They can always proceed. But I will make this final point, Madam President. The state of this country, as it relates to where we are, it can be felt by everyone in this country. You can see it, you can feel it, you can hear it, and all our senses are in touch with the situation. So, Madam President, as I close, I do hope that the education investment that we're looking for will also help young people maybe be trained in caring for horses. Because it is an area that is being promoted here as a possible area of intervention. Horse riding. We need training in horse riding so we could get jockeys. And of course, and if you are able to ride well, you may be able to ride horses and bring resources to this country. Because, Madam President, the Prime Minister has shown us in the US how you can ride your way out of poverty.
Madam President, again, I invoke Standing Order 37-1. Have a seat, please. Madam President, Standing Order 37-1, please, Madam President. Standing Order. Thank you. Madam President, I'm going to read it again, Madam President. I believe that if the member doesn't have anything to say on education, he should take a seat and allow the other members to make the contribution pertaining to the bill that's before us. Again, Madam President, the Senator shall confine his observations to the subject under discussion. The member now moved from health now to horses.
Senator Henry, please confine your observations to the subject under discussion, and please proceed.
Madam President, the subject for discussion is education. The investment alone for education. And we need to read the resolution that is before us, Madam President. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow $16 million from the Caribbean Development for the purpose of financing the Saint Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Improvements. What are you improving? And I dare challenge that there are new areas that we can explore for investing and educating our people in. You have a difficulty with this? Then this Parliament should not exist. But of course, Madam President, I suspect the horses that won the races in Kentucky justify an audible makes a loud noise to St. Lucians because it was audible and justified, sandwiched by a horse that came second called Good Magic. But the horse that came last was Blended Citizens, and the horse that came 15th was Unfulfilled
Madam President,
Promises.
again, I
my mic is on. My mic is on.
Madam President.
So, Madam President.
My mic is on, Senator. Senator Henry, please stop the wittering.
Madam President, I'm finishing now.
Please stop the wittering.
So, Madam President, I've made my point, and I've stated, and I support the philosophy of John Dewey, and I support the position of a good writer, Ellen Golden White, who've promoted that true education is the holistic and harmonious development of all of our faculties, including our social, our intellectual, our physical. And I dare say that when somebody, or when we can achieve true education, we will be wise like serpents. We will be strong like a wild lion, but also we will be as mild as a butterfly. Amen. This is what education does. And I do hope that this government understands, because the people are aware, that you are moving this country in a state of uncertainty, for your actions do not demonstrate that you understand where we are going. And this ad hoc manner of moving with agendas, just because somebody else is doing it, is not adequate. We must bring all our plans together. We must have buy-in. There must be broad consultation. It must be the people's business from the start and to the end. This high suit approach, cravate, avec camisole, bagay sa la, c'est pas ça, c'est moun nou vle. Yo vle nou vin parler, yo vle plan, nou kay porter yo devant. Parce que yo même ka fait décision qui très difficile. Le yo ni pour ça, bay la vie yo. Point la mort, parce que yo vle voyer ici l'école. Yo pas kay dépenser l'argent pour faire que yo vive plus longtemps. Et nous-mêmes ka vini pour bâtir plus grand l'école. Combien de millions de dollars? 16 millions de dollars américains. Presque 42 millions de dollars pour dépenser à sous l'école. Et à même l'air, nous pas qu'à valer pour finir l'hôpital. Nous qu'à jouer avec lui. Qui manière ça dit ou mêler et on m'a maille ou voulez voyer l'école, mais ou pas mêler avec santé yo. ou c'est un gouvernement avec même manière en famille qui a fait décision pour famille ou caillou, c'est même manière ou même qui a fait décision. So même si vous voulez du bout moins pour dire ça qui devant là c'est éducation seulement, c'est éducation. So vous voulez maouer moins pour me dire ça seulement. Mais c'est mon connaître plus meilleur. Merci madame président. Now take all your time to talk. That's what you like to do. Put your mic on.
Senator Mangal.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, let me take this opportunity to congratulate you on having attended this program together with the Deputy President of the Senate in Trinidad. Also, let me take this opportunity to recognize those who have left us behind, and who have especially those who have contributed to this Parliament, in Mr. Cyril Landers and Mr. Ferdinand Henry. Also, Madam President, those are the persons who have gone to the grave beyond. But also, Madam President, we move forward in this country with hope, and with hope that we do have persons living among us that has made significant and marked contributions, some of whom who have been mentioned here, Darren Summy, Laverne Spencer, and others. And whereas persons may believe that those individuals may have done it all by themselves, they are great within themselves. But I believe that they have been nurtured, and they have gone through a system and a country that the opposition today is being referred to as an uncertain, a country of uncertainty. But this is the same country, Madam President, that gave us the great Derek Walcott and Sir Arthur Lewis, that country of uncertainty. This is also the country who provided us with Darren Summy, Laverne Spencer, and all the others, Madam President. And this is a country that has been led by the government of this side for over 30 years. And it is very easy, Madam President, to make the connection as to those people of greatness, from what generation and under what leadership of this country that they attained their greatness. A government that is being referred to as a government of uncertainty, but a government who has produced in this country. But, Madam President, it is very clear that based on Senator Joachim Henry's presentation, that one must conclude that it is an opposition of uncertainty that we have in this country. Not a country of uncertainty, because I am a proud Saint Lucian, Madam President, and all of us here supposed to be proud Saint Lucians. And we must also defend our country with vigor and valor at whatever cost, and must be prepared to lay down our lives for our country. So I feel very sad and disheartened to be sitting in this honorable house, Madam President, and to hear a senator of government refer to this country, not this government, but this country, as a country of uncertainty. This is what we've come to. This is what we've come to. This is an insult to our nation and to our people in general. We can play our politics. We can play our politics. We can hit each other. But let us defend our country. Let us speak proud of our country and our people, Madam President. So I've concluded we live in a time of an opposition of uncertainty. That is what? That is why they are making those statements. And we can see why. Because they came from an era where they led with uncertainty, Madam President. They led with uncertainty. Did they do any better with our school plant? Did they do any better with our children in this country? And I must ask the opposition, when it comes to vote, I would like to see whether they will support this motion to invest in education, or whether they will oppose it. I was waiting to hear Senator Joachim Henry determine whether he would oppose an investment in education in this country. Because an investment in education is an investment in our people, an investment in the future of this country. When you invest in the people of this country, there is no better place to place your investment than in people. This is why you placed it. So when this government is going to go out there and borrow 16 million US dollars from the Caribbean Development Bank, it is to invest in education. And this government has the foresight to take a holistic approach in the development of education of this country. Look at the way it is being laid out, Madam President. We are going to strengthen leadership governance in the sector. We are going to renovate and expand 4 schools. We are going to provide equipment and stationery. We are going to invest in the training of teachers and the professional development of the staff and the school plant. This is a holistic approach to the development of education in this country. What is wrong with that, Madam President? What is wrong with that? And you talk about this government being a government that do not know what direction to go in this country? When you invest in the people, right? It is the great Sir Arthur Lewis that it says, the cure for poverty is not wealth, but it's education. Once you have education, Madam President, the wealth will come, the knowledge. Knowledge is power. Yes. And this is where this government is investing, yes, in the education of the people.
Point of order, Madam President. Standing Order 47.5. The member is imputing improper motives. I indicated, Madam President, that the government...
May I have the standing order again, please?
47.5.
Thank you.
47.5. Madam President, I indicated that the government is uncertain. The policies of this country is uncertain. I never said the country is uncertain. Yes. Madam President, I'm speaking, Madam President, the government is uncertain in terms of its policies, and I wish to place this on the record. Thank you. Any other interpretation or words, I would like to qualify what I've said, Madam President. For the record, it is a government that is uncertain based on its policies. Yeah, thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President.
Please proceed.
Madam President, I am thankful to note that the honorable member has seen it fitting to apologize to this country and to make a correction on his statement. And I will take it, I accept that apology on behalf of the country of ours, this beloved country of Saint Lucia. And I will take it if you're now saying that it is a government of uncertainty. But of course, the people have proven you wrong, and this government has proven you wrong. And our stint in government will also prove you wrong. But let us go back to see where this uncertainty came from. We're talking about an opposition that was just in government 2011 to 2016, yes, Madam President. Yes. They were there all of that time. And now we are trying to make a correlation and say that we are not going to invest in the health sector, so that should give us the endorsement or should give him the power to say we should not invest in education. But Madam President, who did not invest in education?
Point of order, 47.1. The member should, and Madam President, I think what is good for Jack is also good for Jari. The member should confine his contribution to the motion on the table. You're the only one we rebutted.
Order, please. And please turn off your mic. Senator Henry, please turn off your mic.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Mangal, please stick to the issue at hand.
Yes, Madam President. In fact, I'm only rebutting to what Senator Henry has said. He went to education and he went to health, etc., and made the correlation between health and education, indicating that health, etc. But I will move on to education.
Senator Mangal, in spite of that, I ask you to stick to order 37.1.
Yes. And very well, Madam President, and I will stick to the point of education. So what we are doing, Madam President, is that we are going the places, and we have recognized the problem which exists presently in our education system did not exist overnight, or they did not happen like a magic after June 2016.
That's the point.
The Sir Arthur Lewis Community College did not deteriorate after June 2016. The Lady Gordon School in Ciceron did not deteriorate after June 2016. The need for equipment and stationery did not happen after June 2016 only. The need for education and the professional development in our teachers is an ongoing process. And Madam President, I am not saying that we should not be responsible. That is what we as a government has recognized, that we need to be responsible for our education sector. We need to invest in our education sector, and this is why we have taken this proactive approach.
That's right.
We have taken this proactive approach. There is no uncertainty. We know where we are going. We know where we are going when we invest, because in education, the education of our children, Madam President, has to be a dynamic, we must take a dynamic approach to the education of our people. Education is dynamic. The process of education is dynamic. It cannot be static. We cannot keep only to the blackboard and the chalk and so on. We have to, in a technological world and a technological environment, we have to equip our teachers. We have to invest in the education and professional development of our teachers, so they themselves could be equipped to be able to impart that kind of knowledge for our people, Madam President. So this government have seen this. This government have recognized this approach. And it is sad, Madam President, again, to sit right here and to hear Senator Joaquin Henry refer to, are we truly going to be investing in education, or is it just jobs and contracts for certain people? I mean, Madam President, of all persons, he as a quantity surveyor should know better. This is a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. The Caribbean Development Bank has its own procurement procedures, its own guidelines, and its own procedures when it comes to establishing contracts and who get contracts and how it is done. It is not just the government of St. Lucia. This is a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank, and it is sad. If we are going to hit the government on other issues, but do not go there. Do not go there. So, Madam President, I stand in full support of this motion. I stand with this government. I must applaud this government. I must congratulate this government that they are heading in the right direction. They have recognized the need that an investment in our people is the best investment to be made in this country and this country's future development. We have the best we have to compete with the rest of the world is our human resource. And we must develop our human resource in the rightful manner. We must ensure that we equip them, our teachers. We must ensure that our school plant remains in a proper condition so that we can impart that kind of knowledge to our people. And in so saying, Madam President, I fully support this motion. I thank you.
Senator Ferdinand.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I move to the substantive motion, I just want to join you in, as you did earlier, in expressing heartfelt condolences to a number of persons who have passed since our last sitting. I will not repeat those that you had referred to, but there are some others that we can put into the particular category. I think among them there are 3 students who actually passed, one of whom was my ex-student and ex-footballer. And when people leave us at that early age, it could be very difficult for their families. We also, on behalf of this Honorable House, we also want to sympathize with the people of Cuba. As we know, there was a serious catastrophe. And one of our colleagues, I heard mention of the passing of the former Senator Ferdinand Henry. His wife was a very close colleague of mine in District 5 as a principal, and I know that these families are going through difficulties. I also want to beg your leave to also express condolences to a former principal from the same area, Mrs. Claret Ramo, principal of the Larry Shoes Combined School, who was laid to rest during the period between then and now, and ask that we remember the children. Again, this is an education bill, and we need to remember the children and the teachers, the parents, and all who have been affected by the passing of those soldiers and hardworking St. Lucians. Even in the constituency where I live, we also lost a very well-known gentleman, Mr. Elias Steve Louisi, who is being laid to rest on Saturday. And so I just want to express, as we did and other members have, our condolences and a word of comfort to the families of those individuals. We also heard that the persons like Laverne Spencer and other awardees, as you did mention, have been complimented, and I want to join you and the Parliament in doing so. But I also want to say that as we celebrate their success, we want to make sure that their welfare is not placed on the back burner, and that everything we do in this country will lend support to the pronouncements that we make. So, Madam President, on to the motion of the Education Quality Improvement Project, the EQUIP project, that we are here to authorize the borrowing through this resolution of US $16,192,000 US dollars, or equivalent to 43,232,640 EC dollars, if you do the conversion. It is a significant sum, and it is a significant step. I have no problems with the government making any attempt to address any matter relating to education. And Madam President, anyone who has followed my contributions in this Honorable House from day one, I've always made a plea, I've always implored the government to pay attention to our human resource. And our human resource, including our youth, our children, our hardworking St. Lucians, and everybody who contributes to the total development of this country. So when I hear that the government is going to borrow money to do anything to alleviate crime, to alleviate health issues, education, poverty, whatever it is, as long as it is going to help to improve our human resource, I am happy. However, I have always endeavored to provide certain little guidelines and my own advice from time to time, as well as words of caution to the government as we go ahead and implement whatever programs we are borrowing funds for. Today is no different, because I have paid attention to the pronouncements made by the Prime Minister, to the Minister for Education, who are the lead persons when it comes to implementing policy on education. And while these pronouncements have been made about the sums of money that are to be borrowed, I just want to draw our attention, the attention of this Honorable House, to some of the issues that I think are very critical and that we should pay attention to with regard to the use or the purpose of the use of these funds. Madam President, first of all, we have to establish the objective for the EQUIP program being implemented. And we must also remember, I know the members opposite like to take us back to where things started and who did what and who should take credit. I will not fail at any moment in this Honorable House to give Jack his jacket, but also to be fair to anyone or any group who has to take credit or not take credit for what has to happen. We must remember that this education quality improvement project started somewhere. This EQUIP program started somewhere. And I have not heard anybody mention, you know, who actually initiated it. And we all know the St. Lucia Labour Party under Mario Michel and Didicus Jules, right? Minister and PS, were the ones who actually initiated this. So I have no difficulty in saying it's a good program. But we must give credit where credit is due. You would listen and think that, you know, this thing just jumped out of the sky and nobody knew or nobody knows where it started. I also want to say, Madam President, that we're not talking about who builds schools. And don't try to distract me. I've told you guys this morning, I'm very focused on what I came to do. And Madam President, I intend to stick to my presentation and not be distracted by any side statements that are being thrown at me. Madam President, The objective of the EQUIP program is very clear, and the Minister for Education quite correctly articulated what the objective is. And the objective is to improve the quality, equity, efficiency, and effectiveness of the education system. We have no problems with that because that is very prudent and very, very appropriate. So, Madam President, if that is the reason why we have the program, and we are going to borrow $16 million to make sure that it is continued, I don't understand the connection between the policy statements that are being made by, first of all, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Education, and then the actions that we are taking when we go ahead and borrow monies. And I will cite a few examples, Madam President. First of all, we all remember that the Prime Minister tried to make a comparison between expenditure on each student and the quality of education. While he made those, and he did so in this Honorable House during the last sitting, while he made those statements, I didn't hear anything to guide us and to say what are the indicators of that expenditure per child. I would have liked to hear that. Because when we make general statements, we must remember children are not just entities. You can talk about a building or a vehicle or a piece of land and say that you inject $200,000 in it, and you do some farming, and then you expect to make a profit. When you talk about people, especially children, we have a tendency to compare our investment in people in terms of dollars and cents, and we don't really have ways of measuring the return on those investments. So when we talk about the investment we're making in children, we have to be very careful how we measure the returns. And some of the returns on those investments, Madam President, are evident in this Honorable House. The investments that were made in our education, in mine, in yours, in every single member of this House, are now bearing fruit. This is one of the ways we can measure. But we must not think that it is something tangible. So when we make those pronouncements, let us pay attention to the fact that we are investing in people, especially young people. Madam President, I also heard comparisons being made, and I will get to the comparisons very shortly. But let me just say, first of all, that there are 4 schools that were named in terms of the rehabilitation that needs to be done. Among them was the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. The other 3, I'll just leave them alone. But I have a special interest in this Arthur Lewis Community College because it is our premier educational institution in St. Lucia. It's our pride and joy, just like Sir Arthur Lewis was. So, Madam President, I understand from the pronouncements made by the Minister for Education that part of that loan will be sourced to rehabilitate, do some rehabilitation work at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. But I also want to say that while we pay attention to the physical structure of the school, which is obviously a good thing, we must also pay attention to the other essential needs of Sir Arthur Lewis. I have not heard anything about the appointment of a principal for the school. As we speak, Sir Arthur Lewis Community College is still without a leader, a principal. Somebody might be acting, there may be a board and so on. But that is an important aspect of the holistic care and development of the institution. And so, Madam President, it is, yes, we borrow money to fix this and to do that. And even when I speak about the fixing, I also want to make certain observations about what this government has said before about spending money to fix schools. And you come to this Honorable House today and you think that this government is so committed to repairing schools. I will get to that, Madam President, without disrespecting anyone. Because we must be consistent. And when my colleague mentioned this thing about uncertainty, there is merit in it. There is merit in it. But I will not use the specific terms. I will describe what I'm talking about by looking at the inconsistencies that exist between the policy statements that are being made and certain utterances by key members of this government, the Prime Minister included, the Minister of Education included, and what kinds of decisions and actions are being taken on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. So, Madam President, let me get back to the issue of the rehabilitation. Yes, we should spend money to fix schools, and I've always said we should. And there was a time we were not sure whether the Prime Minister believed that we should fix schools, because he was referring to fixing the curriculum before schools are being fixed. Has the curriculum been fixed, Madam President? Now that we are borrowing $16 million to go and repair schools, have we fixed the curriculum? So where is the consistency in what is being said and what we're doing? I am for both, Madam President. I am for fixing the curriculum and for fixing schools. I support both positions. But how do we determine the way in which we do it? Do we just make loose statements all over the place and then come back to the very same thing that we've been told that we should do? So, Madam President, I believe that Arthur Lewis needs all the attention that it should get, but I also think that we should deal with the issue of the administration of the school. Deal with the issue of the organizational structure of the school. Because even if you fix it and make it look beautiful, if the organizational structure of Sir Arthur Lewis is not attended to, we are going to have problems up there. Lots more problems that we already have. In terms of the conduct of the students, the operations of the college, the performance of the various departments, and the general leadership. So we must pay attention to that. But I'm hoping that when we come back to this house to mention anything relating to that money that has been spent, and when the government is going to account for that $60 million, that we believe that we'll be hearing that they have fixed some of those issues that are associated with the running of this Arthur Lewis Community College. Madam President, I heard the Minister for Education also mentioning that there was an intention to do some work on low-performing schools. Thank you, bro. Low-performing schools. Now, as a former teacher and principal, we have to be very careful when we make certain statements that can seem to be labeling. We must admit the truth sometimes and see that some schools or some individuals are not performing up to standard. Sometimes we have to say that to them. I have had to say to my teachers, I believe that, you know, your class or this student can do better or you can do better. There's nothing wrong in saying so. But, Madam President, when you say low-performing schools, what are the indicators of a low-performing school? I didn't hear the minister explain that. What schools are you referring to? And how are you going to determine from that $16 million which schools will get the attention or the assistance that they need because you call them low-performing schools? The Ministry of Education has not indicated any specific process that they are going to use to determine low-performing schools. Are you going to just, Madam President, look at their performance at common entrance, if they are primary schools? Only the academic performance levels? Or if they are secondary schools, how many CXE passes they get? How are you going to determine a low-performing school? Will you take other issues into context? Now, I know that there are principals and teachers listening out there, because when we come to this house and say that, as my colleague Senator Mangal indicated, that the government is borrowing money to take care of education, yes, which teacher and student and principal doesn't want to hear that? They love to hear that. They want to know that the government is doing that. And then you say, we are going to fix some low-performing schools. Some people will become very anxious. Who are the low-performing schools you're talking about? So we can decide to assist schools that need assistance. But before we label people or put any kind of stereotype, we must be very careful. I have seen it happen when we have awards of excellence, when certain schools or certain individuals get certain, accolades based on all kinds of criteria. And you cause a lot of distress and harm, and people are offended because they do not understand what it is you're rewarding. In the very same way, if you are going to address issues relating to schools, try to make sure that you consult with the people who understand the runnings of schools before you come to a school and say you're going to fix this or you're going to do that for them, and in their own assessment of themselves, that is not what they believe they need. Some of what we think when we sit in these air-conditioned places and we say are the needs of institutions are not necessarily what these institutions actually need. And Madam President, we have to pay attention to these things, because we may spend money on a school that perhaps we might say that what we needed to do is to put a library in there because we believe that the students are not reading very well. But what the school may have needed is a remedial program instead of a library, because the methodology in teaching the reading was not being done well. And so we have wasted money to build something that is almost useless to the school. So I'm saying so, Madam President, to say that when we are going to make those statements, we must qualify them. And in fact, it is even better if we can do so with some kind of empirical data. Because education is a very sensitive matter and it's very, very close to my heart. Madam President, I will move on and say that I remembered also hearing one of the reasons that was given for spending that money is that there's climate vulnerability assessment that was done on school buildings. And the Prime Minister indicated that, not the Prime Minister, the Minister for Education indicated that as part of that process of climate vulnerability resilience or assessments that were being done, some of the schools have to be repaired. But, Madam President, I listened to that, and I remembered we came to this Honorable House to debate the disaster vulnerability bill, I think it was. And I stood up and was pleading with this government to say to them that in addition to schools being centers for learning or educational institutions, most of our schools are being used as hurricane shelters and for after-school programs and for all other things in the constituencies. So, Madam President, what is the real reason why that is being given for repairing the schools? Is it to facilitate the new curriculum that has not been reviewed? Or is it to do exactly what I was talking about? If it is the latter, Madam President, I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Because any school you fix, and it becomes more resilient, and it is improved as a shelter, we should be happy for that. But we must also be careful with, as I said, if you're saying that you need to fix the curriculum before you decide which schools to repair, and then you say you have to try to repair low-performing schools or to fix low-performing schools, what is the real reason? I am extremely confused. What is the real reason? What is the thinking behind the spending? And I think that is the point that my colleague was alluding to. When you make decisions and you're going to borrow money from the taxpayers' pockets and spend, you must be very clear what your purpose is and decide what you're going to do with the money. We're hearing different things, and I'm not really sure what is the purpose. I don't know if it is to fix schools because to make them disaster, to reduce their vulnerability. I'm not sure if it is based on the low performance. I'm not sure. There was also mention of the...
Madam President, just for invoking Standing Order 37.1, Madam President, and again, it speaks of a senator shall confine his observations to the subject under discussion, and the member is clearly within the subject matter, but the premise upon which he's building he has built his discussion is on discussions that never took place within this chamber. The discussions that were discussed within the lower house. And I would appreciate, Madam President, if he makes reference to what has been discussed here and not what was discussed in the lower house, because he spoke about what the Prime Minister has said, what the Minister of Education has said, and how can, I'm just seeking your clarification, Madam President, whether or not it is within his right or to build his debate on matters that were not discussed or are not being discussed in this House.
Senator Ferdinand, please proceed with your discussion.
Thank you, Madam President. I think your silence on that speaks volumes. This is the Honorable House of Parliament, and I believe that there is no other basis that you can use than what goes on in this Honorable House. And I think it is healthy that when we make our contributions, instead of just all over the place, that we focus it on the business of the House. So, Madam President, I will proceed, and I will continue on the point that I was making before the interruption. Madam President, my point here is that I have no difficulty with the government, any government, deciding to borrow money if they have to, or to source funding or grants to improve the quality and efficiency of our education system. That has been my cry from day one. My difficulty is with the government's justification or explanation or reason for what they're doing. There needs to be a very clear education policy direction in this country. There needs to be. And at the moment, I am drawing reference, Madam President, to a number of different statements, pronouncements that are being made by both the Prime Minister and the Minister responsible for education. And there is no better source for me to reference, because they are the ones responsible for whatever is going on in education in this country. I cannot go and source what somebody said in Jamaica or by the road. I have to base my argument on what the leaders of government are saying. And if there is apparent disparity or inconsistency with what they're saying, and I have to draw it to the attention of this Honorable House and ask that it be very clear. So I hope that going forward, that this kind of inconsistency is not going to continue, and that it will give us as St. Lucians the privilege of knowing that our government knows what it's doing. Anytime you have that kind of inconsistency, somebody saying something there, something is being said there, you're not sure what's going on, it creates uncertainty in the minds of the people. We want, and it tells you, and it gives value to what my colleague was saying. Uncertainty. So it's not something we pull out of the sky, it is real. Madam President, I will continue, and I will mention another example that was given. And I think that one will be a topic of interest for my honorable colleague responsible for health, as well as my honorable colleague responsible for national security. One of the reasons that was given was that part of this borrowing will be used to tackle drug use by primary school students. And I remember the Minister for Education quite rightly expressing her deep concern for children in the primary school stage already getting involved in drug use. Which one of us here would not be concerned or should not be concerned about children before the age of 11 experimenting with drugs? If we're not concerned, then we are heartless. We should be. And I welcome that. We need to go down as early as possible to have interventions to prevent certain practices. Yeah. I've always said that. That's right. And so, Madam President, that one was very interesting. But again, the pronouncement was made, but again, I heard no mention of how. And I'm not expecting the minister to come and explain every single thing in detail in the House, but give an indication of how you intend to do so. And I have not heard anything about the inclusion or the collaboration of the two departments that can very well help to achieve that objective. How could you talk about spending money on rehabilitation, or not rehabilitation, on money on children to prevent them from getting involved in drugs at a primary school level? You're talking about children below 11 years, and you say nothing about the collaboration between the schools and the Department of National Security. And both myself and Senator, the minister responsible for national security, have spoken about
Senator Ferdinand, you have 15 minutes left.
Thank you, madam. I will complete with you. Thank you. Both myself and the minister responsible for national security have made reference to the nexus between the police and schools, with the CRB officers and so on, in helping to prevent crime and to prevent some of the social problems. As well, the Minister for Health would be interested to ask or to note that in dealing with these issues, they are sometimes involving, or they also sometimes involve, the Department of Gender Relations. So many of our kids, our children from the primary school program who have difficulties have to be referred to professionals in that department. So if you're going to spend money on, addressing drug use at the lower school level, fine, lovely. But is there any connection, collaboration? I don't know. These are the things that we should be saying in this honorable house. These are the things that we need to hear. So that I would have heard that in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Education is doing X, Y, Z to combat. That is what we need to be hearing in this honorable house. And not some of the things that I heard. And some of the things and my colleague didn't want me to refer to the lower house, but that is where the real debate begins. And this house continues so that it can move to be approved. So, Madam President, I heard things about rats in schools and so on. This is not what we should be discussing. How, if we're going to borrow money, how are we going to collaborate and include and involve the relevant stakeholders, the professionals within the health sector, within the law enforcement authorities, along with the schools and the social services. And I can even extend it to the Minister for Social Transformation. Because there are persons within that department who can also collaborate. So we have to be very careful when we make those blunt blank statements and not pay attention to the way in which it can be properly implemented. Otherwise, I will have reservations about my support for that resolution. Because if I don't see how it's going to work, if I don't see the relevance of it, then how can I support it? So, Madam President, I move on because I think I'm running out of time. It pleased me to hear that we were going to consider special needs and special education when it comes to the spending of that money. I was very pleased to hear that. But at the same time, I want to say, Madam President, that if we are going to pay attention to special needs and special education, we need to know what are some of the very essential actions that the government must take. Because special needs and special education, like I mentioned in the last sitting of the House, cannot be approached haphazardly. There are reasons why we have what we call the mainstreaming, where you take children with special needs and you try to integrate them into the regular school. And you have special units or special centers that are committed or dedicated to taking care of these children. So I want to say that, again, it is not very clear how this is going to be done. But like I mentioned, and I think there was mention made to the special education unit integrating a part of the previous Dennery infant school, which the building, to help to implement that program, and that would be lovely. If that is done, that would be fantastic. But I await the actual, the actual process before I make any points on that. Now, Madam President, one of the things that was spoken about again was the issue of students' well-being and school feeding. I think the government has boasted several times nutritional needs, and I didn't hear anything mentioned from that grunt. Maybe there are other plans for it, and I hope they come. And by the way, if we are talking about making schools, improving schools, national, and listen to the terms being used, quality improvement of education, the holistic development of the child, we have to pay attention to the basic needs before the aesthetic needs, the basic needs of nutrition, of care, of security, very important, before we teach them how to use computers and so on. So that is something that we need to be very mindful of. Madam President, just as it occurred a few years ago, a year and a half ago, there seems to be a lack of evidence of planning when it comes to how we go about making our investments in education and in critical areas. There seems to be a reactive approach, and that has led to some difficulties. Just as it happened with the Miku Secondary School situation where the parents had to get involved and with the repair of the school, this was clearly one of the areas that I was looking forward to hearing something about when the announcement was made that the government was going to borrow $16 million. Because we talk about repair of schools. I didn't hear anything about Migo Secondary School. I remember the minister, the last thing that she mentioned was that she was going to try to scrape up some money. But there's a good place to scrape up some money right now. I also made a couple statements about the Beanfield Comprehensive Secondary School. Madam President, tomorrow is common entrance. The students of grade 6 are writing common entrance tomorrow. I wish them well. I wish them well. I hope that all of them can do well and that all of them will make their parents proud. And they will be able to attend the schools that they had as their first choice and that they have scored, they have attained the score to attend, including the Beanfield Secondary School. I am hoping that that is the case. And I implore the government to find some money out of this, if they can. And if the funds will not come before that, pay some attention to the situation with that, in that school. Because if the students have made their first choice as Beanfield Secondary, a school that is on its way to becoming a school of choice in the South, and that in September they will find themselves having to go somewhere else that may be further away from their homes, that their parents may not be able to afford, or that will disrupt their regular plans, it can again become another problem that we do not need. So while we're talking about making that big investment, and we're so proud that we're borrowing all that money to spend on education, quality of our education, we must remember that there are some simple things that we must pay attention to, very simple things. So I hope that this matter has been addressed and will be attended to. I offered suggestions for them. I always do. I don't come here just criticizing the government. I make observations and I usually offer a suggestion or two. And I always say that I'm not doing it with any fee. I am not one of the consultants. And I'm not asking for a consultancy service. I am a proud St. Lucian educator who always sees a need to add my voice and my advice to what is going on. If we know what is good for the students, and I'm sure we do, make sure that these children, when they go to school in September, get a chance to be at the school of their first choice. And not forced to go somewhere else where the parents are going to suffer. And then we come and boast about borrowing $16 million US to do what? Finally, Madam President, I heard that some land was being sourced, and I think the previous former Prime Minister did mention that that was in process. Near the Dame Paulette Louis' school from those funds, and that sounds like very good news. Now, while it is heartening to hear that the government has finally acknowledged the efforts that were made by the now opposition in acquiring this land, and that this is not one of the projects they will stop, but that they are going to continue, I want to also say on a word of caution that children who have behavioral problems or children who are going to be assigned to those special institutions, that we pay very careful attention before we go about building something, acquiring property, and building something for them, and we have not prepared the system to integrate them. That's all I'm going to say on that. Madam President, I like to offer solutions.
Senator Ferdinand, you have 5 minutes more.
Thank you. I'm doing very well within my time. Madam President, I'd like to offer solutions. But I also want to say that when the solutions are offered, please, government of St. Lucia, please pay attention to some of the value that is in some of those solutions. And stop making excuses. The last time I spoke in this honorable house, I asked the question whether this government is a government of excuses. This is 2 years. 2 years. You're right? That's 2/5 of your period in government. Get to work. It's not about turning back and blaming everybody for what has happened. We know what has happened. That's why they were voted out and you are in, so get to work. Madam President, I say so because every time there seems to be a challenge or an opportunity to make something happen, as we have here in this borrowing of $16 million, to make something happen to improve the quality of education, we have to listen to what this government did not do a few years ago. Madam President, I hope that's the last time I'm going to have to say so. And Madam President, we still have some unanswered questions. While some of our colleagues are asking questions of the previous government, we have some questions that are unanswered with this government. And I will mention one of them relating to this very education problem. We had NSDC that was quote unquote replaced with CHTTI. And at this point, I am uncertain about what is going on with the CHTTI situation. And I'm going to leave it at that. I am very uncertain, and I think the government needs to be very clear to St. Lucians, because they are young people who have taken loans, they have commitments, they're trying to improve their education quality, so they have made commitments, rightfully so, but right now they are very uncertain about what next. So we must provide those answers as soon as possible. So let me end, Madam President, by saying that the wealth of a nation and its prosperity is highly dependent on its health, its education, its human resource. And the way in which we take care of that will determine our prosperity. And so I implore the government to not allow what has happened in our health sector to happen in our education sector. We can ill afford a double whammy. We need to be very mindful that we do not allow our education sector to go down that road. Because if that happens, no matter what else we do, there's no way that we're going to be able to survive. And so I end my presentation, Madam President, by reminding all of us that education is a major neutralizing agent between the haves and the have-nots. So Arthur Lewis said it very nicely. And it also prevents the social polarization that tends to occur when governments have no direction. And if there's one thing we have left in St. Lucia to prevent that from happening, is our education sector. Let us make sure that we do not allow it to go down that road. We do not allow it to become a crisis situation, so that our country can continue to prosper. I thank you, Madam President.
Minister for Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam President. I did not intend to still be here at this time of day, but our duty has actually extended the time, and here I am. I wish to echo the sympathies of fellow senators, as well as their compliments on all what was given this morning, including Madam Speaker yourself. I will not reiterate what has already been said. But much has been said today about this bill, which I fully support, Madam President. It is a vital, this motion, sorry. The funds that we are borrowing is essential for the education sector in St. Lucia. The schools mentioned include the Lady Gordon Memorial Opportunity Center, and most St. Lucians are not even aware that this school exists. It is a special needs school. And when we came into office, Madam President, that school, a wall at that school had collapsed, and it had been sitting there for years when we came into office. The principal had been lamenting the fact that this wall that collapsed was preventing the students from using the playing field. And I started asking for assistance on her behalf in order for us to bring this school, the playing field, back up to a standard that the children could use. So you can well see where these funds will go into very good use. We have already fixed that wall, and we have fixed the playing field. We had it, the grass was very high on that playing field. Actually, it was quite abandoned, this school. And the principal and teachers are the ones who really keep struggling with the students to get resources, to do the best that they can with the little that they have, because it's almost as though that school was forgotten. So now I believe that the principal is going to be very relieved, as well as the teachers and the students, for the funds that we are sourcing here from the CDB. And this is what we found when we came into office.
Order, I'm having difficulty hearing. Proceed. Minister of Wellness and Health.
Thank you, Madam President. So I'm saying that it is really a welcoming, it is really very welcoming. I actually get very emotional about that school, Madam President, because my daughter attends that school. And when I hear a lot of people making noise about, special needs people, and they're caring about special needs people, and a bill like that comes to this house, and we prolong so much in terms of just seeing how important it is that we borrow these funds. We attach all kinds of conditions and all kinds of criteria. We want to know all kinds of things. But I ask myself, is that really necessary? We know the condition of these schools. When you look at the Methodist school, do you need more justification for those funds? Sir Arthur had to be relocated, part of it, to George Charles. We came and we found it in such a mess that we had to relocate part of that same Sir Arthur that we talk about, the great, wonderful, almighty Sir Arthur Lewis. Yeah? But look at Sir Arthur when we came in. And we're not saying that, we are not the ones who are saying you should have fixed it and this and that. You are the ones bringing it up. We come and ask for a little bit of money to fix some schools.
Fix it.
And you want to talk about all kinds of things, all of a sudden. And you were just here 2 years ago. You were there. And you've had us there from morning trying to justify.
Please direct your statements to me.
Sorry, Madam President. Trying to justify $16 million to fix all these schools. I mean, you know about the other 2 schools. They need a real facelift. These schools are in a real bad shape. When we came into office and Minister King went to see the Methodist school, he said, Prime Minister, if I have to take my own money and fix up that school, I will do it.
That's right, you did. That's true.
And we are here debating what will be the use of that money. Sometimes I stay in this house, Madam President, and I wonder what it is that we are doing or what it is that we are thinking. And we relate this to the health agenda. You know, these days, all you hear about is health. All of a sudden, paklaba. Everybody is falling on health. But nobody, none of you for the past 5 years tried to find out. Madam President, why did they burn St. Jude to begin with? Who burnt it down? Why did we burn the 2 Soufriere hospitals? But we come here to ask for more money for education, and you relate it to health. But I would love to know the answer to these questions. You are so passionate about health. Every time the United Workers' Party is in power, hospitals are burning down. And when you come into power, you don't try to find out who burned them down, but you are so passionate about health. You had 5 years.
You were refusing.
5 years to address that
President,
issue.
I rise on a point of order. Point of order 31.4. Sorry, 31.5. 37.5. Point of order 37.5. Okay? I'll just read it. No senator shall improve improper motive by any other member of the chamber. While the member has not mentioned anyone's name, the member is making a reference to which government is in office when certain things happen. And as we know, there have only been 2 governments in office in the last, how many years? And so if it's not the United Workers' Party, I don't know which government she's referring to. And in that case, Madam President, I think it is improper for the member to suggest that when one government is in office, something that's happening as serious as burning of buildings is being done, if not by the present government, it suggests that it's being done by the other government. So I think that
Improper motives.
it is very clear where this is going, and I believe we should stick to the discussion.
Minister for Health and Wellness, maybe by implication, some of your remarks are unparliamentary. I see nothing explicitly said connecting government to action, but I'd prefer us to err on the side of caution. Therefore, please confine your remarks to the debate at hand. Continue, Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm so guided. I want to recall that our senators on the opposite side wanted to know why it is that we are not paying as much attention to health, because they say the health of a nation, the wealth of a nation is the health of a nation. I took it down. The wealth of a nation is the health of a nation. And as such, they have referenced education vis-a-vis health. They have also said that we have neglected to address the health issues facing the nation. And I am aware, Madam President, that 2 of the health issues facing the nation are 2 of our hospitals. And I am making the point that these 2 hospitals were the OKEU hospital. I want to make the point that OKEU hospital, when we came on board, was closed. They could have opened it if they cared so much about the health of the nation, but they did not. They were saying it's completed. The St. Jude Hospital, which burnt in 2009, they came into office, stayed 5 years, and if they cared so much about the health of the nation, Madam President, they could have completed it. And after close to $200 million, it still was not complete. But today, you have senators who are pointing fingers at me, who are referring to myself here, Minister of Health, who are referring to the government as not caring about health, when we are here debating a bill, a motion to borrow some funds for education. They even brought in horses. They said that the Prime Minister said, you can ride your way out of poverty. And I never heard our Prime Minister say that. So when we look at how far they will go, Madam President, to mention all these things that are happening under health, which these things were there while they were there, and why did they not just take care of it so that today we would not be hearing about it? Madam President, Senator Jerome Gideon, he gave quite a lot of advice, and anytime we come to this honorable house, he does give make a lot of suggestions.
No,
Sorry.
you're wrong guy. That's the wrong guy.
You don't want to have that.
Yeah, yeah. Please correct that quickly, please.
Ferdinand. You don't want
Senator Ferdinand, sorry.
It's important.
What is? You don't have
He always gives very good suggestions, Madam President. But you know, I am just wondering whether it is that he's giving us these suggestions because his own side, they don't listen to him, or they were not listening to him when they were there. Really and truly, it's quite comforting to hear the things that he has to say, all the ideas and everything else. But I am wondering, why is it that he's giving all this information to our government, you know, and why not, you know, why was he not giving that information and all these suggestions to his own government?
Good point.
Or is it that they were not listening to him?
True.
And is it by that same token that he thinks that we are not listening to the people who are advising us? Because it is the public officers, the technocrats, who are advising us in terms of what schools, Madam President, need the help, need the support. And it is based on that we determine what schools we are going to address these issues with first.
Point.
I heard him talk about the curriculum, and he said he supports both. We have to address the curriculum issues as well as the structural issues. But you see, what I need to ask him is whether they left any monies there for us to do that. You have to think of the finances, and this is why we are borrowing. And that is just the beginning, because we will address the curriculum issues. So I want to give him the assurance that we are going to address those issues. We will address the curriculum issues. But
Order,
we first...
Order, please. I need to hear the statements being made. Proceed, Madam Minister.
Thank you. I need to give you some comfort and consolation that all of that you are speaking about, it's coming. But you see, we have our agenda. It is the United Workers' Party agenda that we are tabling right now. And you will have to wait until we get to that point on our agenda. Okay? Because we have a lot of other priorities. We have the hospitals, like you well know. We have these schools that are falling down, falling apart. So we cannot leave them there while we go and look at the curriculum. There are some of them we are already tackling the curriculum. But some others, we have to fix the infrastructure. And that was there in your time. And they did not fix it, so we have to go do it now. This is not new. Why did you all not do it yourselves? Madam President, the issue of drugs and allocating some of these funds towards tackling that problem in schools, I take his advice on that kindly, but I also want to reassure him again that all ministries, all the relevant ministries will be on board, and all relevant stakeholders will be consulted, and all the necessary processes will be followed. But we do not have the time to come to this honorable house, Madam President, and discuss all these things and state out all these things. It will be made available, and you will see how it is going to unfold. You see, the interesting thing about our cabinet is that it is made up of a very dynamic combination of leaders. We come with a lot of skills and experts among ourselves, and we consult and co-opt whatever else it is that is necessary to get the job done. We take counsel. So when we are requesting finances, it is not that we do not have the additional support that we need to go along with it. It's just that we cannot, like I said, come to this honorable house and take up all this time discussing issues that, you know, are not really relevant here. So at the end of the day, senators, it will all come together. I give you the assurance that it will all come together. Let me take this opportunity to wish all the students who will be sitting common entrance tomorrow all the best in the exams, Madam President, if you will allow me to do so. And let us not label students and say that they should go for schools of first choice. Because I know, Senator, you are very conscious of labeling students when we say we are looking at the schools, low-performing schools. But by the same token, we prioritize schools in terms of first choice, best performing, second, third, fourth, fifth. Yeah? So I am saying that in itself should be a concern, because there are some schools that we have labeled as top schools and other schools as low-performing schools. So while it is concerning that we may say we are fixing low-performing schools, by the same token I am saying that system that currently exists where we have high-performing schools going down, maybe it is something that we need to look at. And it is not us that put it, I'm just saying we may also need to consider that system. So, Madam President, this bill has my full support, and I am extremely excited that it includes at least one special needs school. I thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I am quite pleased that the senators have made their contribution to this motion, both sides. And just to close this motion, I would just respond to just one or two of the comments made by the members opposite. First of all, Madam President, I can recall that when we first came into office, the Cabinet of Ministers were presented a pipeline of projects, and more specifically, projects that were in the pipeline for education within the CDB. And I recall very clearly, Madam President, that the amount of money that these projects totaled were actually 30 million US dollars. Close to, well, in the region of 80+ million EC dollars. And the president at the time, or the prime minister at the time, asked the question, if we are to repair the schools in St. Lucia, what about the curriculum? What about the curriculum? Will it be business as usual? Just repairing, repairing, and repairing? What does the educational system of the future look like in St. Lucia? And if we are to change the educational system, it has to do more than the physical structure. It has a lot to do with the curriculum. And that's where this thought came from. And I cannot recall ever that the Prime Minister saying that curriculum before rehabilitation of schools. He said it is important that we focus on the curriculum. It is important that we focus on the curriculum, because the curriculum is what will change or prepare our students for the future. And I can remember clearly also, Madam President, that the burden, the debt burden this 30 million US dollars would have brought on us as a country would have raised our debt to GDP in the region of 85 to 87%. And that was very concerning for the Prime Minister. And that's the reason why, Mr. President, Madam President, that we did not do away with the project in its entirety. We did not. We saw the relevance of continuing the program, but not at the extent of the level of the borrowing that was first placed before us. So I'm happy, Madam President, that we will be doing the various upgrading and so on at these 4 schools. We are hoping and wishing that the country had sufficient monies to undertake more rehabilitation and programming at the other schools, but as my fellow senator said, that in consultation with the technical staff of the Ministry of Education and perhaps other ministries, 4 schools were selected as the pilot schools for such program. Madam President, I stood earlier to interrupt the leader of the opposition leader, because of the angle that he was taking this debate. And it appears to me, Madam President, that the opposition has a fascination or fixation on health, that everything that they can talk about now is health. Now, I'm very happy, Madam President, that they don't talk about the economy. They don't touch that, Madam President. They try the best to undermine the data, the information, the indicators that has been coming out from the Statistics Department, discrediting the numbers that are coming out, the unemployment numbers, the growth numbers, any piece of statistic that has come out of or from either the Statistics Department or the Policy and Research Department within the Ministry of Finance, they have been questioned by the opposition. But they are very almost silent on the economy, because the economy has turned around. We were moving in a direction that would have landed us in serious problems, Madam President, but today we are on the rebound.
I rise on a point of order. Very consistent, 37-1, as was done earlier. I think you've guided this House very well in terms of the guiding us as to sticking to the motion on the table. And whereas there have been some links made with health, I now suspect that the opposition, the leader of government business, is discussing the economy. And I think the motion on the table speaks to quality education, quality improvement project. So I think we should be guided.
Senator Ferdinand, I draw your attention to 34.2, in which a minister or parliamentary secretary may conclude a debate critical of the government or reflect adversely. He is entitled to rebut. Proceed, Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. And I made it very clear that I am rebutting. I am not debating the motion. I'm rebutting. There's a difference. Thank you, Madam President. So I was saying, Madam President, again, the word economy came out, and now they are trying to interrupt me on this because they cannot stand what is happening in the economy, Madam President. Things are happening like never before. And, Madam President, as I said earlier, there seems to be a fascination with health in this country when it comes to the opposition. But I want to make it clear, Madam President, that this side of the House will not play politics with the health of the nation. We shall not. And if we, Madam President, we had any interest in playing politics with health, we would have continued with the St. Jude's as presented to us by the opposition. We would have built it. We would have built a structure a building, we would not have built a hospital. There's a difference. A hospital is supposed to be fit for purpose. A hospital must be fit for purpose. And if we had interest in just building a building, we would have continued. But because, Madam President, we care about the health of the nation, we wanted to ensure that the people of the South, the people of St. Lucia, have a proper hospital. And this is what we're gonna deliver to the people of the South and the people of St. Lucia in general. Now, Madam President, reference is also being made that we like to make mention of the former administration. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. But Madam President, it's like we are almost forced to do it. Almost forced to do it, Madam President. Because it appears to me, Madam President, that the opposition actually forgot what they left for us to do. And we have to remind the people of St. Lucia what we inherited. We will have to remind them. And that's why, Madam President, the first year in office was a year where we had to stabilize the economy. We had to clean the mess, Madam President. And in our second year, Madam President, is a time for rebuilding. And we are slowly rebuilding this country. And we said in our campaign that we, the United Workers' Party government, will build a new St. Lucia. We could not build a new St. Lucia, Madam President, on the old St. Lucia that was left for us to govern. Could not. So we had to clean the mess, Madam President, and we are in the process of building a brand new St. Lucia. And Madam President, we will not, and we cannot, and we should not build a new St. Lucia with the old policies of the past. We cannot. And that's why, Madam President, when we implement policies on this side, the opposition is baffled. They are baffled, Madam President. The members opposite are baffled because they operate in a way, Madam President, of old. A way that has brought this nation to shame and embarrassment, Madam President. We were once the shining star of the OECS, a shining star. And now, Madam President, Madam President, we are struggling to be that shining star. I almost said a shining flambeau, but you know, but a shining star. So, Madam President, so when I hear the members opposite talk about, we always make reference to the opposition. We make reference to what was left behind, what was left for us to do. And what was left was a commerce. So we have to remind the people of St. Lucia what we inherited. So, Madam President, the member opposite also said that we have not given reasons for borrowing. But I clearly outlined the reasons why we are borrowing this money. Clearly outlined it, Madam President. Project preparation. We talk about consultancies, and the consultancies include the development of a national policy for special education, customization of special education curricula, strengthen system leadership, develop a national qualification framework, review of the Education Act, develop a policy and strategy for treatment and prevention of drug use among primary school children. These are the reasons, Madam President, and there are more. We talk about construction, rehabilitation of 4 schools, and I will mention the 4 schools again, Madam President, the Gordon and Walcott combined, La Guerre combined, Vidbutel combined, and Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Madam President. Another reason, Madam President, is that the project will also comprise of project management, supply of furniture and equipment, and teacher training and professional development. Madam President, these are the reasons, and that's why we on this side will support this motion in its entirety. Thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow US $16,192,000 from the Caribbean Development Bank for the purpose of financing the Saint Lucia Education Quality Improvement Project. Be it further resolved that in the case of the Special Funds Resources portion, 1, the loan is repayable in 80 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of 1st January, the 1st day of April, the 1st day of July, and the 1st day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the bank may specify in writing. And 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.5% per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the Special Funds Resources portion. B, in the case of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion, 1, the loan is repayable in 48 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the 1st day of January, the 1st day of April, the 1st day of July, and the 1st day of October of each year, commencing on the first due date after the expiration of 5 years, following the date of the loan agreement, or on such later due date as the Caribbean Development Bank may specify in writing. 2, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.97% per annum, withdrawn and outstanding on the amount of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion. And 3, a commitment charge at the rate of 1% per annum is payable quarterly on the amount of the Ordinary Capital Resources portion unwithdrawn and with accrues from the 16th day following the date of the loan agreement. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Madam President, I wish to suspend this House for 1 hour so that members can have lunch. So we can return here at 10 minutes after 2 o'clock hour.
$2 o'clock?
You want lunch? But you can finish? You have much to do.
2 o'clock?
Madam President, my members here they are actually suggesting that since we don't have much to cover here, that we should just continue the debate, and I'm hoping that will be the case, that we can conclude within probably 30 minutes. Okay, Madam President, I will adjourn it, well, suspend the House for 1 hour and return here 10 minutes after 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Senators, the question is that this sitting of the Senate be suspended until 2:10 this afternoon. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
All right.